There are games that last 90 minutes but change a life forever. That is exactly what just happened to Josimar Jose Évora Dias, better known to the world as Vozinha, the goalkeeper of Cape Verde, who after one unforgettable night against Spain, went from being a name nobody outside his island nation recognized to becoming one of the most viral and emotionally powerful stories of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We are talking about a 40-year-old keeper born in the port city of Mindelo, shaped far from the spotlight of the world's biggest clubs, and built through sacrifice, patience, relentless travel, and years of quiet waiting. He did not arrive at this World Cup as a superstar. He arrived the way true survivors of the game always arrive, in silence, with work, with experience, and with a dream that never went out. And then the unthinkable happened. Cape Verde, in their very first World Cup match in history, stepped onto the field against Spain, a historical powerhouse, a former world champion, and a squad loaded with elite talent. Spain pressed forward again and again, pinned Cape Verde back at times, and it seemed like only a matter of time before the goal would come. But standing between those three posts was a man who refused to let it happen. Vozinha flew across his goal line, cut down angles, punched away balls loaded with danger, shouted orders to his teammates, and held an entire country's dream in his gloves. When the final whistle blew on a 0-0 draw, that result felt far bigger than a single point. It felt like a victory. For the island, for the people, and for one man who waited most of his life for a night like this. Before kickoff, Vozinha had roughly 460,000 followers on Instagram. By the time the story exploded across every media platform on the planet, that number had rocketed past 1.5 million within days of the match and continued climbing rapidly. The world did not just see a goalkeeper making saves. The world saw a man who had spent almost his entire career in the shadows finally stepping into the light. And once the light found him, nobody wanted to look away. To truly understand why this story landed with such force, you first have to understand the man beneath those gloves. His full name is Josimar Jose Évora Dias, but in football, everybody knows him as Vozinha. He was born on the 3rd of June, 1986, in Mindelo, a port city on the island of São Vicente in Cape Verde. For years, he has been one of the most important figures in the national team, but outside of his home country and the small football circuits he traveled through, his name simply did not register on the global radar. He stands 6 feet 2 inches tall, with an imposing presence between the posts, and his career was never built on the lights of the Champions League or the Premier League. It was built on grit, on reinvention, and on a willingness to go wherever the game would take him. Before his name exploded across social media, Vozinha was almost entirely unknown to the international public. He was not the starter at some powerhouse European club. He did not appear week after week in the headline matches. He had no massive endorsement deals, no agent booking him onto talk shows, no verified blue check that anyone outside Cape Verde particularly cared about. But that did not make him an amateur or an afterthought. Quite the opposite. Vozinha was a footballer with serious mileage, years of professional experience accumulated across multiple countries and multiple leagues. His journey began in 2007 at Batuk FC, a club in his hometown of Mindelo. From there, he moved to CS Mindelense, the oldest club in the entire nation of Cape Verde. But it was not until he was 25 years old that he finally turned professional when he signed with Angolan club Progresso. That late start is itself a remarkable part of his story. For most professional footballers, 25 is already the prime of a career. For Vozinha, it was the beginning. From Angola, his path wound through Moldova, where he played for Zimbru Chisinau, then to Portugal, where he represented Gil Vicente in the Portuguese top flight, then to Cyprus, where he spent years at AEL Limassol, 116 appearances, which represents the longest single stint of his club career, then to Slovakia, where he suited up for AS Trencin, and most recently back to Portugal, where he played for GD Chaves in the Portuguese second division, putting up 19 starts in the 2025-26 season, with 6 clean sheets before becoming a free agent just before this World Cup. He arrived in the United States not as the glamorous face of a top-5 European league, but as a journeyman, a traveler, a man who had bet his career on persistence rather than prestige. On the international stage, Vozinha made his debut for the Cape Verde national team in 2012. For 13 consecutive years, he served as the first-choice goalkeeper for the Blue Sharks. He was a cornerstone of their Africa Cup of Nations campaigns and a driving force behind their historic World Cup qualifying run, during which he kept 7 clean sheets in 10 qualification matches as Cape Verde finished top of their group, ahead of Cameroon, who had reached the quarterfinals back in 1990. That is the kind of number that does not come from luck. That comes from consistency, leadership, and a goalkeeper who knows exactly what he is doing. The nickname itself carries a story that cuts straight to the heart of who this man is. In Portuguese, the word Vozinha can mean either little voice or little grandmother, and the origin of the nickname is not glamorous. When Vozinha was a young kid playing football in the streets of Mindelo, older boys would bully him, and when he would run home to his grandparents crying, the older kids would laugh and call him Vozinha, the kid who runs to grandma. He never dropped it. He carried it with him from club to club, from country to country, and wore it as his jersey name throughout his professional career. What once was a taunt became an identity, and on June 15, 2026, that name became known in every corner of the planet. The context of what Cape Verde accomplished that night against Spain is difficult to overstate. This was not just any result. This was Cape Verde's very first match in World Cup history. Full stop. They qualified for the 2026 tournament with a decisive 3-0 victory over Eswatini on the final day of African qualifying, clinching their historic berth in Praia. The Blue Sharks represent a country of just over 500,000 people, scattered across 10 inhabited Atlantic islands off the coast of West Africa. To put it in perspective, there are American cities with larger populations than the entire nation. And yet, Cape Verde managed to qualify for the most prestigious football tournament on Earth. A tournament that, even in its new expanded 48-team format, remains ruthlessly competitive at every level. The squad was built in a remarkable way. Cape Verde's head coach, Bubista, leaned heavily on what he and others call the 11th island, the 1.5 million Cape Verdeans living abroad, particularly in Portugal, France, the Netherlands, and the United States. To identify players who could represent the nation, Bubista reportedly used LinkedIn and social media to track down Cape Verdean descent athletes competing in various European and African leagues. It was a creative, borderless approach to squad building that reflected the reality of a diaspora nation trying to punch far above its weight class. The market value of Spain's entire squad heading into the tournament was estimated at around $600 million, according to Transfermarkt. Cape Verde's full squad was valued at approximately $18 million. That financial gap is not just a number. It is a statement about the scale of what happened in Atlanta. Spain entered this match ranked second in the world and was widely considered one of the 2 or 3 most likely teams to lift the trophy in July. They had not just history behind them, world champions in 2010, but a current squad built around some of the most technically gifted players in the world. The expectation was not just that Spain would win, the expectation was that this could get ugly fast. Just one day before the Cape Verde match, Germany had dismantled Curaçao, another World Cup debutant, by a score of 7-1 in Houston. Many expected a similar result. Many expected Cape Verde to pay a harsh price for their inexperience at this level, to be overwhelmed by the occasion, and to leave Atlanta with a bruising defeat. None of that happened. The numbers from the match tell one version of the story. Spain finished with 23 total shots to Cape Verde's 6. Spain had 8 shots on target compared to just 1 for the Blue Sharks. The possession split was 74% for Spain and 26% for Cape Verde. Spain completed 764 passes. Cape Verde completed 275. By every statistical measure, Spain had the game. They had the territory, they had the ball, they had the opportunities. The one thing they did not have was the goal, because every single time the match looked like it was about to break open, a 40-year-old man in goal did something extraordinary. Vozinha was named the official man of the match. He made 7 saves in total, and 6 of those came from inside the penalty area, which means these were not routine grabs from range. These were point-blank stops, instinct saves, the kind that require not just technique, but a deep, almost spiritual composure under the most intense pressure imaginable. He cut angles. He came off his line with authority. He read the flight of crosses before Spain's attackers could react, and when the moment demanded it, he simply flew. Spain's players were stunned. Their technical staff was stunned. The watching world was stunned. After the final whistle, Vozinha could not hold back his emotions. He stood on the pitch and wept. He later explained that those tears were not just about the result. They were about the people who were not there to see it. He thought about his grandparents, the people who had raised him while his father served in the military and his mother worked. His grandparents passed away a few years ago and never got to watch him play on this stage. He also thought about his mother, Cândida Évora, who wanted desperately to be in the stadium but could not make it. The reason? She had not been able to gather enough money in time to pay for a United States visa. That detail hit people across the world with an almost physical weight. Behind the man who had just stopped Spain, behind the hero who had just given his nation its most glorious footballing night in history, was a son who wished more than anything that his mother could have been in the stands. But in a development that genuinely moved millions of people, that story did not end in absence. By June 17th, just 2 days after the match, it was reported that Vozinha's mother had successfully received her visa and would be traveling to Miami to reunite with her son in time for Cape Verde's second group stage match. That update spread across social media like wildfire, and it transformed what had already been a deeply emotional story into something even more powerful. The World Cup did not just give Vozinha his moment, it gave him back his mother at the moment that mattered most. Cape Verde's next assignment in Group H is on June 21st against Uruguay in Miami. Group H, which also includes Saudi Arabia, was already expected to be competitive, but after Spain's failure to win their opener, everything in this group has been thrown wide open. Spain, for all their talent, have now won just one of their last 7 matches at the World Cup finals, a startling statistic for a team considered a tournament favorite. The pressure on Spain heading into their remaining group matches is enormous. For Cape Verde, every point from here carries the weight of history. A country that had never played a World Cup match before June 15th now has a real path to the round of 32. And they have a goalkeeper who has already proven he belongs at this level. A goalkeeper who, at 40 years old, is absolutely in the form of his life. The social media dimension of this story reflects just how much modern football has changed. Before the Spain match, Vozinha had around 460,000 Instagram followers. That number represented years of quietly building a presence, sharing moments from his club career, connecting with Cape Verdean fans at home and in the diaspora. In the hours and days following the match, that number exploded. Within 48 hours, he was past 1.5 million. Messages came in from all over the world, from football fans who had never previously heard of Cape Verde, from goalkeeping coaches who said his technique was a masterclass, from diaspora communities in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Jersey who felt a surge of pride they had not expected to feel from a football tournament. A content creator on one of the major streaming platforms also played a significant role in amplifying Vozinha's story to English-speaking audiences, helping push his follower count higher in real time, as viewers watched the match and then immediately went looking for more about this 40-year-old keeper who had just shut down one of the world's best attacks. There is also a broader political and symbolic dimension to what Cape Verde has achieved in this tournament that deserves attention. FIFA's decision to expand the World Cup to 48 teams was controversial when it was announced. Critics argued that it would dilute the quality of competition and that smaller nations would simply show up to be beaten badly by established powers. The opening week of the 2026 tournament has already answered those critics in ways that no press release could. Cape Verde holding Spain, Saudi Arabia continuing to build on the stunning legacy of their upset of Argentina in Qatar. The competition at this World Cup has been genuinely unpredictable in ways that have made it thrilling for a global audience. The expansion did not weaken the tournament. It opened a door for stories that a smaller format bracket never would have produced, and Vozinha walked straight through that door. For American audiences specifically, this World Cup carries a different kind of weight. The United States, Mexico, and Canada are co-hosting for the first time, and the investment in infrastructure, broadcasting, and cultural promotion has been extraordinary. Matches are being played across 16 venues from Los Angeles to New York, from Seattle to Miami. The tournament has already broken attendance records in several cities, and the cultural conversation around soccer, or football as the rest of the world calls it, has shifted noticeably. A story like Vozinha's lands differently when it happens on American soil. It becomes part of the American sports narrative, and the American sports media has embraced it fully. Fox Sports, ESPN, NBC Sports, the New York Times, CNN, and dozens of other outlets ran deep features on Vozinha within 24 hours of the Spain draw. He appeared in interviews conducted in Portuguese with translation, and every single time, his humility and authenticity came through without effort. He told reporters after the match, "I kept believing because of this dream." That sentence alone encapsulates something that resonates far beyond football. He had considered retiring from the national team multiple times. The recognition was not coming. The World Cup seemed like a distant fantasy. But he stayed. He kept training. He kept competing in the Portuguese second division, at an age when most goalkeepers have already wound down, and when Cape Verde finally qualified for their first World Cup, when the draw placed them in a group with Spain, when the schedule put that group opener in Atlanta. Vozinha was ready. He had been ready for 13 years. The world just had not been watching until now. At 40 years and 12 days when he played the Spain match, Vozinha became the oldest player ever to appear in a nation's debut World Cup game, breaking the record set literally the day before by Curaçao's Eloy Room. Another keeper, another debutant nation, another remarkable story from the expanded tournament. These are the kinds of details that make the 2026 World Cup feel genuinely historic rather than just routinely significant. Cape Verde's coaching staff and federation have been careful not to get ahead of themselves. Head coach Bubista, speaking through an interpreter after the Spain draw, said simply, "This means everything for our country." He did not promise a run to the knockout rounds. He did not speak about winning the group. He spoke about meaning, about what it means to a small island nation to compete at this level and to earn a result that no one believed was possible. That restraint is itself a kind of wisdom, because the pressure on this team is already immense. Every match going forward will carry the expectation born from that 0-0 draw. Uruguay, Saudi Arabia, neither of these are easy opponents, but Cape Verde has already shown that they are not here to simply participate. They are here to compete. The story of Vozinha is also, in a deeper sense, a story about the geography of football talent. The sports scouting apparatus, increasingly sophisticated, increasingly global, still has enormous blind spots. Players in Angola, Moldova, Cyprus, Slovakia, and the Portuguese second division do not always get the same attention as players coming out of Barcelona's academy or Ajax's youth system. But they exist, they develop. They put in thousands of hours in front of crowds that are measured in hundreds rather than thousands, on pitches that are not always well maintained, in leagues that ESPN does not carry and that most American fans could not name. And sometimes one of those players ends up in goal at a World Cup, in front of 60,000 people, stopping Spain. The talent was always there. The stage simply needed to find it. There is something else worth sitting with here, something that goes beyond the sports pages and into a broader conversation about age, opportunity, and timing. In American culture, the mythology of the overnight success, the prodigy, the wunderkind, the 20-year-old phenom, dominates the sports conversation. We celebrate youth. We build entire narratives around early achievement. Vozinha's story is a direct, undeniable challenge to all of that. He did not peak at 23. He did not have his defining career moment at the age every scout was watching. He had it at 40. And the reason he had it at 40 is because he did not stop. He kept going when the recognition did not come, when the big club did not call, when the camera was pointed somewhere else. He showed up every single day and did the work, and eventually, on a June night in Atlanta, the work showed up for him. This is not a fairy tale in the sense that it comes with a neat, comfortable ending. Cape Verde still faces 2 more group matches. Vozinha is still a free agent from Chavez. The next chapter has not been written yet, but what has been written is already enough. A 0-0 draw against Spain in Cape Verde's first World Cup game ever. A goalkeeper named for his grandmother, weeping on the pitch, thinking about the people he loves. A mother boarding a flight to Miami with a brand new visa to watch her son play on the biggest stage in world football. A nation of 500,000 people staying up through the night to watch their Blue Sharks hold off one of the giants of the game. The world saw all of it, and the world will not forget it easily.